Hey everyone, my name is Becca and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time with us, I'm so glad that you are here. We focus on all things middle grade literature, specifically the first chapters of your favorite middle grade novels, new and old. Today we are going to be reading the first chapter of The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise by Dan Gemeinhart. Dan Gemeinhart has written a plethora of phenomenal middle grade novels, so definitely check him out. And as a matter of fact, he just released the sequel to this novel. I believe it's called Coyote Lost and Found. So if you're familiar with this book and enjoyed this book, you definitely have to go check out the sequel for it. And if you haven't read this book yet, I suppose that's why you're here. So let's dive on in and read the first chapter of The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. And I should mention the first chapter of this novel is quite long, so I am actually going to just be reading us the first 5 pages of this first chapter. There were big days and there were small days, and there were bad days and there were good days, and I suppose I could pick any one of them for my once upon a time. But if I'm going to be truthful, and truthful is something I always aim to be, then really there is only one best place to start this story. It all started with Ivan. Once upon a time, it was hot and I was sweaty. It was about 5 months before my 13th birthday, give or take. We were someplace in Oregon. Honestly, I don't even remember the name of the town, but I know it was on the dry, hot side of the state, away from the ocean. The whole world was so yellow and shining from the beat-down sun that you had to squint no matter where you looked. The blacktop of the gas station parking lot radiated the heat right back up at you, so it felt like you were getting cooked from both sides. I suppose most barefoot people would have been hooting and hopping with that sizzling asphalt burning the bottoms of their feet, but my soles were used to it. And I walked along easy as you please. My t-shirt was stuck with sweat to my back. The braid that hung down nearly to my blue jean belt loop slapped wetly against it as I walked. The man behind the counter looked at my bare feet and started to say something. "Miss, you can't." But I knew where he was going with it before he started. That tyrannical no shoes, no shirt, no service rule is pretty darn universal in America's gas station convenience stores. I just waved at him and cut him off. I know, I said, and kept walking. I'll only be a minute. I'd never been in that particular gas station before, but it was exactly the same as every other one, so really, I'd been in it a million times. Rows of plastic-wrapped junk food, walls lined with glass-doored coolers full of pop and beer and flavored iced teas. I walked past the metal racks of beef jerky and candy bars to the pot of gold at the end of my rainbow, the slushy machine. There it was, humming in the corner next to the coffee dispenser and soda fountain. My mouth started watering as soon as I saw that neon-colored sugar slush swirling around under the big plastic dome. There was a kid standing in front of it, looking up at the churning slurry with desire written plain and clear across his face. He was 7 or 8 and staring up at the left flavor, which was an unlikely pinkish color labeled wild watermelon. "Big mistake," I said, walking up next to him and grabbing a cup from the pull-down dispenser. He jerked his head to look at me. "What is?" I nodded with my chin at the slushy he was coveting. "Watermelon, that's a no-go. Never waste your time with anything that claims to be watermelon or banana flavored. It's a scam every time." He squinted at me, clearly unconvinced. "Doesn't matter anyway," he said. "My mom already said no." He threw his head back dramatically. "Ugh, but I'm so hot." I yanked down another cup and held it out to him. "Here," I said, "my treat." The kid's face lit up. "For reals?" he asked. "Yep." But then his face dropped again, just as quick. "But Mom said no. I'll probably get in trouble." I shrugged. "You're probably going to get in trouble at some point today anyway. You may as well get a slushie out of it." He thought about that for a real short second and then snatched the cup from my hand. "But I really would think twice about getting watermelon," I added. My advice fell on deaf ears, and in a flash he was pulling down the knob and squirting glistening pink slush into his cup. I filled mine with the other flavor, funky fruit punch, which was the superior choice in every respect. The kid looked me up and down as we walked toward the cashier. "You're wearing weird clothes." I looked down at my raggedy blue jeans and grease-stained white t-shirt. "I'm basically wearing the same thing you're wearing," I pointed out. "Exactly," he said, "and I'm a boy." So, boys and girls shouldn't wear the same thing. Well, then you better change, 'cause I ain't. He had nothing to say to that, which was probably the right move on his part since I hadn't paid for his slushie yet. I ignored the hostile good riddance look on the cashier's face when I paid. Like the hot asphalt on bare feet, it was something I was getting used to. Me and the kid walked through the jangling door and back out into the heat. The highway hummed, not too far off in the distance. The kid took a big slurping suck on his slushy straw. He swallowed and smacked his lips and nodded. "Well," I asked, "how's the wild watermelon?" He ran his tongue over his lips, considering. "Sweet," he said. "Weird. Not really like watermelon at all." I nodded and took a suck of my delicious, flavored as advertised, funky fruit punch. "Lesson learned, kid. Now you know." He looked glumly at the phosphorescent pinkness in his cup. I sighed. It's tough, seeing a kid get a bad break. I held mine out to him. "Here," I said, "trade." His eyebrows shot high. "For reals?" "Sure, I don't mind it all that much," I lied. "And you're the one who's getting in trouble. Better make it worth it." We swapped slushies, and I took a sip of wild watermelon. He watched for my reaction. "I think," I said, "that the flavor designer at the slushy company needs to spend a little more time eating watermelon." The kid nodded. I tapped my slushy cup against his. "Cheers, kid. Enjoy." He said thanks, and I said you're welcome, and then he said, "You want a kitten?" And I swallowed a mouthful of syrupy slush and licked my lips and wiped a little bit of juice off my chin with my arm and said, "What?" "You want a kitten," he repeated. He pointed to where an older boy sat on the curb with a big cardboard box. "We're giving him away. Want one?" I looked out at the big beat-up yellow school bus parked next to one of the gas pumps. There was no way I'd be allowed to get a cat. It was a no-go, for sure. I sighed. "Well," I said, "let's go take a look at least." There were 5 kittens in that cardboard box. And when I leaned over to look in, they all looked up at me with big round eyes and triangle ears, and I tell you, I was smitten. "Who are you?" the older kid asked, and the younger one said, "She bought me a slushie." And the older kid held out his hand, and the younger one handed it over. The older kid took a slurp and smacked his lips and nodded and handed it back. "You want a kitten?" he asked. They were as brothers can be, those two. I'm going to stop there at the end of the first 5 pages of the remarkable journey of Coyote Sunrise. If you enjoyed this first chapter of Friday Read Aloud, please consider liking and subscribing so that you can be notified every time we have a new first chapter Friday available. Until next time, friends, happy reading.